My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
you can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for it is worth it.
Just focus on the next
Doesn't
step.
matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing
That
something.
is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's a
anything else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to
Oh,
Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah,
kids
I just
these days,
love
right?
working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about,
hindsight, that
I've
was,
also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
It
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
Thank you so much for coming on and trusting us to tell your story. I know from a few of the communications I've had, there will be some really interesting things. For me, one of the most interesting is you are New Zealand's only full-time female surfboard shaper, and which is really special because New Zealand actually has a really rich history in it. And I don't think some people probably realise that, you know, they're long-haired people who go to the beach and, you know, and there's sort of a reputation there, but there is a really rich history. So look, thank you for being on the guest speaker and sharing what you do, because it is really special. We've had some incredible female trailblazers on our show. We've had, I think you've noticed, Gemma Lee, the wetsuit designer, right into female wetsuit design. We've had kids who went to the Defence Force, public service, agriculture. So we're really starting to see this real picture emerge of young women doing incredible things. And this is just another one of them. Clearly, I have a bias for the surfing industry, but there's messages here for just manufacturing, construction, design in the New Zealand economy. So I think your story will resonate. Just because you shape a surfboard, there's people making things daily in our country, which is really important. For me and you, Grace is going to go blurry-eyed as I start to talk, but my connection was as a young fella being sponsored and travelling to Gisborne and being in the shaping bays at New Wave surfboards with Ralph Blake. Then eventually Pipe Dream surfboards with Ray Dalton. And now I know Tommy Dalton, his son, who was only a little tiny baby when I used to visit as a kid to see Ray shape boards. So I sort of know the world you live in, and it fascinates me. And I've had the privilege of being in those places with those people. Just quickly before, because we might not touch on this as much, for those who don't know, you can see if people are watching on YouTube, surfboards in the back, they probably don't understand you each day start with a massive slab of polystyrene or EPS foam. And from that massive chunk, you shape rails, concaves, V's, wings, channels. You calculate volumes. The precision is incredible. Then there's fin placement, etc. So the art with which you perform, whether we talk about that or not today, will be up to you. But it's incredible. That's all for you, which is really important. You're a custom maker. So people will approach you as an individual and say, I weigh 80 kgs, these are the waves I surf, this is the way I surf. You will talk to that person a lot, think about the way they surf, their age, their fitness level, and from that emerges something made specifically for them. Unlike walking into a shop, plucking something off and going, I'll give that a shot. It's an art, it's precision, it involves technology, science, chemicals, design elements, computers, mathematics, and your hand shaping skills. Because I know there's a lot of machines around, but you've still really got this art of hand shaping in amongst, I think, is it almost 100% of what you do, if not a large majority. This is the catch, though. Like much of New Zealand's manufacturing, it's under constant threat from cheap imports, mass-produced products. So you sit, like a lot of New Zealand shapers, in isolation, and you have to compete against them pumping them out of China, Taiwan, in their thousands. But you have the point of difference that you will make it specifically for a person. You've served your apprenticeship with some masters in Pete Anderson and Whangamata. Steve Morris now I think you're with and you get to see him. You're engaged, you're a stepmom, in amongst all of this wonderful stuff. And lastly, before we get you to chat, who's this for? It's for young girls who want a road less travelled, because I think there's a lot of girls just going, do I have to do the norm or can I do something different? I think you'll be a real leader there. Students who love water sports, surfing, boating, paddle boards, foiling stuff, surf life-saving. It's all in amongst our love of the ocean and things we do. Designers, craft people, material textile people, and people who value custom-made products made specifically for them. And there are a lot of people who demand something special, and that's why they'll come to someone like you. And lastly, for business people, because I know essentially you have to run the gauntlet of selling product, and that's a business orientation you have to have as well as being good at what you do. Welcome. Thank you for turning up, and I can't wait to hear this.
Thank you.
Can we take you, Lou, back to school and see whether there's any young girls or young boys sitting there now? And we have surf academies all around our country. Kids now in schools get to surf during the day where, we've just had kids go to the world champs. What were you like at school, and can we start to see the emergence of what you became and what you loved and hated? Yeah, can you reflect on that for us?
Oh, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head pretty much with the intro. Thank you. So, yeah, I grew up on the North Shore in Auckland. I had a really good primary school experience, really good intermediate school experience, and things definitely started to change a little bit for me when I got to college. I jumped into college and then I moved 6 months into Form 3, which is year 9. I was just not enjoying that particular college I was at. I had a lot of mates that went to another one, so I had to kind of beg a fair bit to move because my parents weren't that keen to change things up, but luckily they did. And so I jumped into a different college, and to be honest, my whole schooling experience has been pretty positive. It wasn't so much the schooling. It was probably more me as a person and my personality and maybe the way my brain works, or not too sure. Kind of been thinking about that a lot, but as I got older, I did just start to show less and less interest. It wasn't, I don't think, anything in particular. I just think I had a busy brain and I really like to work with my hands. So when my subjects came around that were wood tech and metalwork and PE and all that sort of thing, that was when I was really thriving, and that was the stuff I looked forward to. And then English, math, science, the stuff that I had to really sit down and kind of just stay still. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I had good grades and I was, passing well. I think that lack of interest and that lack of excitement really started to kill the buzz for me. So I got to the first term of year 13, my last year at high school, and I could just tell I was drifting away. I got my restricted license by then, so I was driving to school and, driving there, thinking of all the other things I could be doing, surfing, skateboarding, making money, and I think my brain just started to wander. I had a couple of mates that had left at the end of year 12, and they got straight into apprenticeship. Sure, they were working right up till the 23rd of December, but they had these paychecks and they had these surf trips planned and just all those sort of small things that I could see they were sort of thriving on, and I was sort of in that back seat going, what should I do? So that's when I sort of made that call, and it was my call. It's a little bit hard to remember because high school seems such a lifetime ago now, but I obviously was talking to my parents and still living at home, so I needed to get their approval and their acceptance from that. But I've been very, very fortunate with amazing supportive parents, so their only rules really were, if you're going to leave school, you need to go and get a job straight away. There's no living at home, watching TV. You need to take that next step. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because your message, it's not like the schooling system failed. In fact, you just got to a point where they'd prepared you to want to leave. And so I think there's a lot of kids sitting there, and I think, and I suppose we're hoping, and you're also touching on the parent situation, that it's not, they've done nothing wrong, you've done nothing wrong, the school's done nothing wrong. In fact, everyone's done everything right. You're ready to go.
Well, even I think it's just poignant to jump in and reference how outdoor ed's a topic or a subject that's being put up on the chopping blog. And you think about, for you, Lou, those were the classes you loved, was the woodwork, like the tech, the hands-on. And so you saw what you liked, felt that, experienced it, and then it was like, okay, the school's not going to continue that. Just a moment to recognize there's kids where that's outdoor ed for them. So if we take that off the table, that's why you need these electives and stuff happening in school, because you're not necessarily going to have, like you said, your fire lit by English, math, science, but it could be those electives. And so we keep bringing those need to push like outdoor ed, diverse subjects, so important to be in school.
Yeah. I remember getting a excellence award because I was doing NCEA, so I think I got excellence in wood tech in years 11 and 12. And that was really quite rare. I don't think there was many other kids in general at my college that got an excellence in that subject. But then to be a chick as well, because I think as I went through years 11, 12 and 13, level 1, 2 and 3 of NCEA, you got to pick your subjects more and more as you got older. So there was less and less girls basically going to wood tech and going to metal tech and engineering and all that sort of thing. So it did feel a little bit, not isolating, but I could kind of tell that that's where I was excelling with hands-on work. And I was also very fortunate, I think in about year 12, my parents were obviously noticing that I was mentioning maybe not finishing school, maybe just getting university entrance and then starting a new chapter. And they actually took me to a career advisor on the other side of Auckland. And I was pretty nervous, to be honest. I was like, oh, what's going on here? What's she going to tell me? But she was really amazing and super helpful. And she got me to fill out basically a massive questionnaire and then helped me sort of narrow in on 2 or 3 different options I could do. And one of them actually that I remember sticking out in my mind was being a wood tech teacher, which is always something. And I mean, I'm still pretty open to doing that. I like hanging out with younger people and teaching and seeing that sort of brain activity and all that sort of thing. But that was a massive, massive stepping stone for me, was seeing a career advisor and her going, yep, there's more to life than you doing a 3-year degree. Because I just knew deep down in my heart and my soul, I was like, I don't think I can do another 3 years of school. Is it going to be a waste of time and money for me or for my parents, and so on and so forth? Yeah.
And you were surfing at this stage, so there was a connection to your future job. Is that right?
Yes. I've been surfing since I was about 12. I've been at the beach my whole life, boogie boarding and stuff since I was a grom, but I really caught the bug from my older brother and cousin around that sort of 12, 13-year-old mark. And then as soon as I got my restricted license at about, I think it was 16 or 17, I was just into it. But I've also been very heavily involved in surf lifesaving. I joined that when I was 15, and so basically when I wasn't at school, my whole life was revolving around the ocean and training. And when I wasn't training, I was surfing. So that's just been a really natural part of my life, yeah.
So you're now midway through 13, parents are on board, you've been to a careers advisor, you leave school, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do?
Well, I finished at the end of term 1, and I had no plan at all, which my parents were not that stoked on. But I just knew I had to get out of there. And I remember having some pretty funny conversations with my mates when I was leaving, because they were sort of like, what are you going to do? And I usually have answers to questions, but I didn't this time. So I went straight to the Red Beach Surf Club and started pouring beers on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, I think, much to my parents' disgust. They didn't really think that that was a good job to be doing when I wasn't even 18 yet and didn't really seem to have too much direction as to what I could do as a bartender. So quickly after that, I think I was only doing that for about a month, and then I saw an advert in the New Zealand Herald for a cabinet making apprenticeship. So I jumped on that because I thought I've always enjoyed wood tech and I kind of need to get my A into G, otherwise my parents are going to be pretty upset with me. So I went over to Mount Eden and had a job interview with Danske Mobile Furniture. And I remember going over there on my own, on my restricted, and all of that was pretty full on for me, you know, because I think I had this idea of what school was like when I left. And then pretty quickly I was pushed into the real world of you're on your own. Not you're on your own, but you got to start doing these things for yourself. No one's here to look after you. No one's really going to be holding your hand. And that was also a really amazing thing with my parents, is they supported me, but they never cotton wrapped me, and they really kind of helped set me up for real world experiences. So had the job interview, pretty nervous, and I think I heard back about maybe a week later and I got the job. So I was straight into it. 40-hour weeks, sitting in 2.5 hours of traffic every day, and pretty quickly, I think I started not long before my 17th or 18th birthday. And I had some of my mates were still at school and they were going out to town and sleeping in and then going to school hungover and all that sort of thing. And I was up at crack of dawn, 5:30, no more training in the morning. It was straight on the motorway, down the motorway to work, sit in traffic, do your 8 hours and then jump back in the motorway and sit in traffic all the way home, back to training. So I was pretty like, what? Yeah, I made the right choice. But you just, I don't know if anything can really prepare you for that unless you do a heap of work experience before school. It's just because school is such a big part of your life. It's, how many years is it? 10 years, 13 years.
Yeah.
And you just get into that comfort zone and you're so used to it all. You got your parents making you lunch half the time. Someone's dropping you off. Someone's picking you up when it's raining. We're so lucky in this country. Like, we're so fortunate. Some kids, don't have it easy like that. But I just think I was in that comfort zone. And in saying that, on the other side of that comfort zone was so much good change for me. And so, yeah, I did my apprenticeship.
So the shock part of it was probably really good for you. I remember we were talking to Cam Roygarden. He had to go get an apprenticeship before he even became a rugby player. But that shock of what the world could look like is enough to teach you good things, but also for you to start going, that isn't for me forever. So I think, I can understand why some parents want to push their kids into it, okay, I'll show you what work looks like. So how long was your apprenticeship then? And what do you become qualified as on that part of your story?
Yeah. So I did 2.5 years at Danske Møbler Furniture. And by then I was really done with the traffic. It was just getting worse and worse. And I wouldn't say quality of life back then because I had a great quality of life. But looking back, I think I just noticed I was not training enough and sitting in too much traffic. So I managed to transfer my apprenticeship to a smaller company back here in Silverdale, which is not far from where I was living at the time with my parents. So the hour 10 commute turned into a 10-minute commute, which was a game changer for me. I was a lot happier. And I didn't want to quit my apprenticeship just because I wasn't enjoying the area that I worked in. I wanted to stick it out because I knew once I could stick it out, even if I was to never touch that career again, at least I had my backup and my backbone of a skill set. I feel like confident enough where I could go back now and into a cabinet making factory and just kind of pick up where I left off. So I always knew I had to do that. My parents sort of drilled that into me. So then I transferred my apprenticeship, was back here in Silverdale, and then I think I'd finished my apprenticeship a couple of months before I turned 21. So that was probably 3.5 to 4 years by the time I finished school and got that apprenticeship. Yeah.
Yes. And you never lose that. Like you said, you could go teaching possibly if you wanted. You can go back to cabinet making. Yeah. So how in the world did you then find surfboard chafing? Because this is interesting.
Yeah. So I've been also very lucky to have an extremely cool uncle, and they grew up in Taranaki. Sorry, they didn't grow up in Taranaki, but they lived down there for about 15 years till my cousin was about 15, 16. And my uncle has always been very involved in the surfboard industry. He worked for Seasons. Do you know BJ at all, Blair?
Yeah.
Heard of him? Yep. So he was glassing and sanding and all that there, and then they decided to make the move to the Gold Coast when my cousin was 15. He was a pretty big up and coming surfer, so they thought they'd move over there and give it a proper shot over in Australia, see if he could make it. So yeah, basically as I got older, I realized what my uncle did for a job, and it had always tickled my fancy. I mean, to be honest, my first plan in life was to be a pro surfer, and I quickly realized that I was not going to be a pro surfer, and I was thinking, what would the second best thing be for me, like that I would love doing? And it was building boards. So sort of as I was doing my cabinet making apprenticeship, that was always in the back of my mind, you know, could I use these hand skills into something a bit more passionate that I like, maybe work my own hours, that sort of thing. So that was always kind of circulating in the back there. And we just did a couple of trips over to the Gold Coast to see our family, basically. And my uncle was extremely generous enough to take me into the factories and give me a tour. And at that age, you know, 19, 20, it was just a kid in a candy shop, you know, these big sanders and these massive rooms with all these white boards. And it was always my dream to just have a nice white 90s shortboard. So he helped me make my first board when I was about 17, I think. And he took me through the whole process. I'm so lucky. So we cut it on a CNC machine, we shaped it together, we glassed it together, sanded it together, and then I got to surf it. And pretty much from that one experience, I was just hooked, just like surfing. I just thought, this is the coolest thing ever. There's no real right or wrong thing you can do with a board. You can color it how you want, and at the end of the day, you're the one that's happy with it. Whereas I was making these bookcases and these kitchens, and I was sort of like, oh, another white kitchen, another wooden bookcase. You know, there was no creative outlet there. You know, it was still cool. I was still getting job satisfaction from start to finish building these things. But as soon as I got into that world of surfboards, I was like, whoa, you can do anything you want.
Yeah. Wicked. Okay.
Yeah.
So you dabble for a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. And then what? How does it?
Yeah, so pretty much finished my apprenticeship and did what every boss's nightmare, really. They poured all this time and energy into me, finished my apprenticeship, and then a couple of months later I said, sorry guys, I'm leaving. And I had an amazing boss at the time. His name was Lyndon, and he was extremely gutted to see me go, but he could tell that I was sort of somewhere else, you know. And I'd shown him all these photos of the boards I'd built and the experiences that I'd had, and he just said, oh, you know, you can't toss this up. So not long after my 21st birthday and a couple of months after leaving that job, I booked a one-way ticket to the Gold Coast to live with my auntie and uncle, and I lived with them for probably 3 months, and then I got a flat with a group of Gizzy girls actually in Burleigh. But in that meantime, my uncle helped me get a job, and ever since then, that's basically where it started. And I started off doing the most horrible grommet jobs again. It was like I'd climbed this ladder and then I'd gone straight back down the slide to the bottom, sweeping floors and doing basically all the jobs the guys didn't want to do. But that's just doing apprenticeships. You just have to start there, and you just have to be happy and humble with it, really.
And so you are in a shaping factory. You're cleaning up the resin, getting the stuff off the floors, but you've also got your eye on what the masters are doing and picking up stuff and what, still shaping your own boards?
So at that stage, I pretty much had only made my one board, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I took a couple of boards over with me, but I don't even know if they were my own personal shapes. And then basically once I got access to that factory, I was able to use the facilities in my spare time. So I would do my 8 hours or whatever it was, and then I could kind of clock on to my own stuff. And it was all very, I was really lucky to have my uncle there, but it was all very just learning as you go, really. Because we weren't in the same factory, my uncle and I, he had a job 15 minutes up the road, and I had a job down here in a different factory. That's the beauty with Australia, is there's so many different people doing their own things, so it's not that hard to find work. And then I think I just started looking in magazines and looking at different boards that I wanted to try. I knew from a pretty young age too that I tried the shortboard thing. Yeah, it was pretty fun, but I wanted to make all these alternative stuff. I wanted to try these twin fins. I wanted to surf these single fins. And so then my imagination kind of just started to blossom from there.
Could there, unlike your Danske Mobler apprenticeship, where they would have built you up going through a process, no one was teaching you really, I mean, step by step, a qualification of how to shape, laminate, glass, colour, set fins. You're just sort of learning it by osmosis, are you? Or
For sure. Yeah. Basically just watching and not asking too many questions in case you piss them off. But enough of a sponge to pick up what they're doing. The guy I worked for, his name was Simo Surfboards, and he was a really nice guy. He was very, very busy. So he didn't have all the time in the world to show me what to do, but he would set me up with tasks for the day. And as I progressed and improved my skills, he would slowly put me up the ladder on the different jobs that we had to do. So obviously I was cleaning up and sweeping the floor, but I think I started on just spraying the blanks white, which is basically just taping up the stringer, learning how to use a spray gun, which he showed me how to, and then basically painting the boards white, which is what those crispy white. We were building JSs, so they all need to be white, high performance, light, fast shortboards. And I mean, sometimes I would do 50 a day, maybe more. And then my next job was to set all the fin plugs, which was basically just FCS2 plugs. So I learned how to mix up the resin and mix up the brew for where the plugs go in, pop the plugs in, set the angles. And I mean, I might do 100 of those a day. So it was kind of that repetition of Danske Mobler of here's 100 bookcases you got to build this week. But in all fairness, doing stuff repetitively is the best way you can learn. And then also just having someone like Simo that would point out straight away when I'd done something wrong, and just you being able to take that constructive criticism and try and do better the next day or the next board, you know?
yeah.
So it was just a really slow process of learning all the basic jobs. And then I think after about 6 months, I did a couple of days glassing with him, and he'd do one side and I'd do one side so that the board wasn't going to go off and get ruined, because that's a really hard thing about building surfboards is it's very easy to F them up basically. And over in Aussie it's not so much of a big deal, but here it's so expensive to get materials, so if you do make a mistake that's crucial, it's a real kick in the teeth, because you do end up losing a lot of your money.
Yeah. So your shout out for kids, really, if they're particularly the surfboard industry, they've just got to get on the ground floor. They've got to go to New Wave, whoever, big factories, even go to the Gold Coast, go to America, and try and get on the end of a broom.
Yes. And just I think nowadays it's a lot harder, because you've got these kids looking at social media going, I can run my online business at 17. But I don't disagree with that, but I didn't have that when I was growing up. So the only way we knew how was to start from zero and start from the bottom of the food chain and show respect and be humble and work hard, and don't take your phone to work, because back then that was like a big no-no, whereas nowadays, I don't know, it seems a lot different. But I think if you can do your stuff online, go for it, but you're never going to get that real life experience unless you are having those human interactions with your boss and with your foreman and with your second in charge, and really just sink your teeth into it is my advice. And don't just give up after 3 months. There's never going to be a perfect job, and you're going to have to stick it out sometimes in order to see the benefits, really.
You're the product of your environment. So when you are online, if you're just clocking in for a meeting or whatever, and then you finish, you're still in your environment. But when you literally go to the Gold Coast and you're immersed in it through osmosis, you're picking up jargon and slang and technical bits, so that if you see a material, like you guys were, Blair was nodding, oh yeah, he understood, I didn't understand, because I've never been around it, right? So just being around and with those people and hearing things, it's like you said, it's invaluable, because then down the line, it's kind of in your bones. You know it through and through.
There's a real assurance here too, from what these two here, they're mine. And I had to sort of mush my way through it. Had I had the opportunity like you to do 500 fin placements and 500 Vs and some channels and so, I could imagine how good you must get. So that's the real shout out. I think you've trained with some people who, they're masters, aren't they? The JS boards are world famous, that's for sure. Can I just ask you then, so how did you go from basically being that trainee to getting your own line or to branch out, and how did you go about becoming you as a female shaper in New Zealand? You moved home, obviously?
Yeah, I came home. I did a year on the Goldie. Part of the reason I came home was just I was getting pretty homesick, not for family or friends as such. It was not that I didn't miss them. It was more our landscapes and our crowds. 20 people here is crowded, but 120 people at D-Bar is quiet. So I got used to it all, but I did start to miss that authentic New Zealand sort of experience and going up north and four-wheel driving and getting off the beaten track. So that's kind of why I came home. But sort of leading up to when I came home, I was going pretty ham after hours building my own boards, and very, very slowly started to do a couple for friends. And every time I'd come home for, if I came home for someone's birthday or whatever, I'd bring a coffin of boards home and, some cheap boards for some mates. I was just happy to be building them. If my mates wanted to pay me $500, $600, $700 for them, I was just stoked, And the first sort of 50 were a bit random, probably a bit dodgy, but it's just where you have to start. You can't skip that phase because you won't get to the next bit if you skip that. It's like it's hard to explain. Anyway, came home, found a shed in Waitoki, which is about 10 minutes from home. Family friends had a shed, and I just said, can I rent it? And basically set up my own little factory pretty much instantaneously. I think I did a little trip overseas between when I left Australia and came home. Built myself a couple of boards for a Mentawise trip, and then as soon as I touched back down in New Zealand, I just got straight into it. Started my social media account, started just word of mouth surfing. I came home at 22 and a half, had no responsibilities, moved back in with my parents, was paying not much rent, living off pineapple and, wheat bix and all that sort of thing, chasing every single swell that I could, and then building boards in my spare time. And I had access to the shed, so I could go in at 9:30 at night and work till midnight. Wasn't going to peeve anyone off. So I was basically in that flow state when you're at that age with no responsibilities and just going for it. Yeah.
So you're already showing some real nous here. You're starting to advertise.
Mhm.
You're starting to source materials. You must be thinking logos and image and then so you're starting to get that real business side to you going. You weren't stupid by any sense. So how did it grow? What did you go from selling, if you were lucky, one board a month or a week, to how did it traject for you?
I'm trying to think. I think I was selling probably one or two a week, but I definitely wasn't respecting the New Zealand shapers by any means with the price range. And I can only see that until I have grown older. I was selling my boards for not enough money. And no wonder a few of the older guys got a bit annoyed with me, because all of a sudden I'm this young person coming back into the country with the skill set, which isn't as good as theirs. And then I'm selling these boards for cheaper than what they're selling their boards for, stealing some of their customer base and just going surfing whenever I want. So for a lot of people that are locked into a lease and a mortgage and they have kids, for someone young to do that can be a real kick in the guts, but it is the way it is, and it'll happen to me at some point. I might be 45 and some young person's going to come back from Europe or South Africa or California and undercut the other people in a sense. But it's just the way it is. And I think if you're in it for the long run, you realize that pretty quickly who you need to respect and sort of like being on an even playing field to the other shapers. Because I remember Pete Anderson always used to tell me, you can be a master ceramic potter, and then you can have someone down the road that's only done 10 pots, but they can both be sold at the same price. So it's really hard, like it's not until you develop your knowledge of the surf industry, whether you're a surfer or a shaper, do you realize who you're paying and what sort of skill set you're paying for, But yeah, basically when I came back, I started advertising. It all started just with my mates. And then as the years went on, it went mates of mates, their mates of mates. And then, now I'm in that range of just get random people messaging, emailing, and calling for a board.
So you worked for Pete Anderson Surfboards in Whangamata, and now you share a space, is it with Steve Morris in Silverdale? So you branched into you tell us about that?
So the timeline is I came home and I had my own shed for about 6 to 8 months. Then I was surfing out at Muriwai and I met a guy called Scotty Squires who had just started up his own board building factory in Constellation Drive in Auckland, which is about 30 minutes from home, 20 minutes from home. So I shared a factory with Scotty and a guy called Gohard, Steve Walker, for about a year. That factory was called Factory Surf Co. And it was pretty awesome because it was my first experience back in my hometown, which was a lot similar to my experience in Australia. We had like a bit of a community going, a bit of teamwork. We helped each other. So that was awesome. And then during that time, we were driving down to Whangamata to get our CNC cuts and our blanks from Pete Anderson. And I think I was pretty new to the CNC world because I'd done my first 100 boards as hand-shaped. So I was pretty unsure about the technology and I didn't have any files. It was all just up in here and in my templates, of hand-shaping for so long. So then I went down to Pete's to get a couple of cuts one day and I said, he actually said to me, oh man, your files are really bad. And I said, oh yeah, I kind of figured that. I'm not very good at them. And I said something like, the older guys don't really want to teach me. They're just busy with their own thing. And he said, oh, well, if you ever want to learn, come down and work for me and I'll teach you a few things. So I spent the 2.5 hour drive home thinking about that. And as I'd gone to visit him over time, I realized just how prestigious he was, So to me, that was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So not long after that, I said, see ya to Scotty and go hard and moved down to Whangamata right before COVID lockdown.
And just before I forget too, there was another one. I know Ray Dalton from Pipe Dreams sent Tommy also to do training. It does seem to be the place where Kiwis can go, plenty of shaping bays. And I know Ray wanted Tommy to be really immersed in that culture like you probably were, or obviously were, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good place to go. It's such a closed book here. You could knock on every door in every factory door in this country, and I guarantee you might only get 1 or 2 yeses. Everyone is just so, I don't know how to explain it. I just think it's a smaller industry here. It's more cutthroat. You've got pretty big egos, but also we're just trying to compete against these shops like Backdoor, and it's so difficult. So to share your skill set, it's like doing what I did with my apprenticeship as a cabinet maker. I learned all this stuff from all these amazing tradesmen, and then I left. And I could have gone and started my own cabinet making company, but I didn't. I changed careers. But that's always a risk you're going to take when you take someone on if they haven't learned everything already, You're sharing this very refined skill set with people and you just don't know what they're going to do. They could do exactly what I did and learn everything that you've got and then leave you. So going to Australia, it's a lot easier. You don't have that worry of, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people surfing. buying boards. There's kind of enough to almost go around in a sense. Whereas here, you got so many people that are just going into the surf shops and buying a Hypto Crypto or whatever. And it's kind of that battle between all the other shapers of picking up the scraps, really.
Yeah. Is that how you, because I wanted to touch on this, that battle you have with commercialism, mass, even now JS, all of those boards, Hypto Cryptos that come into this country, you are picking up the scraps, because what I'm suggesting is a lot of young kids probably don't understand. They've never been to a shaping bay like I had the privilege of. They don't know they can contact someone like you and have an hour-long conversation about how good they are, their weight, whether they're front foot, back foot surfer. They see a video of Kelly Slater riding something with which he could ride a piece of wood better than they'll ever ride a surfboard, and somehow they think, I'll buy that. The reality is the genius they could get from a custom shape could change everything for them.
Totally.
How do you feel we get the message out there for custom made boards?
We've been trying pretty hard.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit like if you own a car and you take it to 10 different mechanics. Like, they're not going to know where the last guy left off. But if you take your car to a mechanic and you get them to service it every year for 10 years and change the brake pads and do a diff change, all that sort of thing, they're going to know your car like the back of their hand. And it's just going to benefit both parties so much more. I think people are so easily influenced these days on, they wake up, they look at their phone, Rob Machado's put out another edit of the squash banana or whatever it's called. Like, it's just so, people are so easily influenced now. And I don't think enough people have had that awesome experience of getting to work through boards and models with a designated shaper. The thing too is, a lot of people, it's going to take 2 or 3 boards sometimes. And a lot of people don't have that grit and determination to kind of stick it out and go, I like this board. Can we change this next time? But what that will actually do for their surfing is it will help them to understand their surfing ability better. And it will just improve their whole experience going on trips. They're just going to have a proper quiver that's designated to their weight, their height, their ability. People trained weight, go back to your shaper, tell them that you need something with a few more liters. Don't get a DH and then change to a Chili and then buy a Slater's Designs. You got 3 different boards coming out of 3 different totally different factories around the world that probably some of them are not built well enough to float you or to tackle our 2-foot East Coast shories. There's just so many variables, whereas if you go to your one guy or one girl and say, this is what I want.
It's a process over time, isn't it? That, because you're right. Whereas I could have come to someone first off, not liked it, didn't like the tail release, you would have said, well, we're going to tuck that in a little bit. We're going to take some volume out. We're going to...
Because you guys are also, there's a shorthand that has been spoken. And so I'm coming in as a non-shorthand of the surfing. Like, how much, Lou, when people, like, you do get some who will come in like Blair and they know and they can talk to you. What's the range of clientele you get? Like, there is trendy, and some people like trends and they have money. So they might go, I'm going to get a custom board straight away. And they have never surfed, versus your tried and true who've gone through the boards, etc. How much of your time do you spend with a client sussing out, like the soft skills of, can they even surf, and respecting that, but being polite and all of that? How does that play in?
I try and really take a lot of time and effort to get to know them. I try not to just do an email thread, because until I've met the person and seen their stature and their weight and learning about their whole surfing journey, it's really hard to just say, buy this, it's going to be this much, and you might have a good time on it. You really need to build that relationship with people, and I really like to get people to come in and meet them face to face in person, talk about their surfing journey, how long have they been surfing. I mean, at the moment with my Aitken Surfboards brand, I get mainly guys, and mainly guys that are sort of intermediate to advanced. Whereas with my new brand that I've started, Lady Sliders, which is just designated to women, I'm getting a lot of women that have started surfing since COVID. So they're between that 0 to 5 year experience range. So a lot of them are making that transition from foamies, soft tops, to their first glass surfboard. So, and that's a big step. You're changing your equipment quite drastically. So I really like to get them to come in, get to meet them, talk about what they've been enjoying, talk about the things that they're missing out on their surfing, which 90% of the time is wave catching ability, falling off the back of the wave, board being too light, getting blown around in the wind. I mean, some of these girls that come in are 5'2" and 45 kilos, you know, they're so petite. And so that's why I've tried to build this new brand just for women so that they can be catered to. Because a lot of the time, if you do walk into a surf shop, 80% of those boards are not going to suit a woman at all. But that's what I try and do. I try and have really good, genuine conversations. And sometimes I'm still not even suggesting my board. I'm thinking, stay on your foamy for another 3 or 4 months, you know, or get a secondhand board before you drop $2,500 on me, you know, on your first longboard. Try some of your mates' longboards, see what you like, and then come back to me with some photos and we can talk through these models of what you liked, and then I can blend them together and build you your first longboard that you enjoy.
That's the passion.
It's funny you touch on that honesty.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we'd all like to come in and I ride 33 litres and you might go, I think you should up that. And I would think that was an insult because I'm supposed to be good. But you'd be saying, well, but you're getting older. I think there's an element of honesty, or someone thinks they surf a certain way, but they definitely don't. Yeah. Sorry, Grace. You go.
No, it's exactly the honesty and integrity, and you've got the passion, obviously, for surfing. And when you get that, I mean, I can't speak to surfing, I speak to rowing. If the oarlocks are 2 centimeters apart, you can feel the difference, right? And you can see the difference on someone else. And so understanding how the two of you are speaking that with the surfing passion, you just want to keep that going. And you're not going to get that if you walk into a generic store and get commercialized. That is the beauty of the skill set that you have. It's just really remarkable. And if someone's listening who maybe it's not surfboards, but it's something else, I think all the advice you're giving is like priceless. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And there's that idea, isn't it? You can have that pride of the JS or the whatever under your arm because I'm one of many, or those people who you walk into their house and they have custom made furniture, their own painting, and a surfboard that is just a one-off. It is made and it's got my name on it, you know, and it's there's something really special about it. And I think if more kids understood that, I think maybe people from my generation probably do. They know about custom boards, but getting kids into it is really important.
Yeah, I just try and cater to, it's a little bit difficult, but I try and cater to everything. So I want to build them, for a start, top priority is a board that goes well for them. Number 2 is a durable board, a board that's going to last a long time, because I don't want to be mass producing boards and I don't want to see any of my boards go into landfill. I mean, I'm sure eventually some of them will, but my goal is to not pollute the environment anymore. And then, so that's priority 3. And then number 4 is like making it look really cool and unique and getting the customer involved in the design process. And that's kind of like my 4 values. I don't want that instant gratification and that ego stroke of, oh, this will suit you. Here you go, buy it. And then it doesn't go well for them and they never come back to me. I'd rather have a positive, honest experience with them and say, hey, you might not be ready for this, or come back and see me in 3 months. And it's not to say that they're not good enough or anything, but I would rather them really feel ready to spend that money on me at the right time of their lives, you know, and their right surf journey.
We've said this a million times on these interviews. The amount of people that we have on here are so honest with their job, or whether they love it, hate it. Your honesty brims me full of confidence, that's for sure. That to work with someone like you for a shape would be outstanding. Can I just say, look, thank you for coming on and trusting us with this story. And like I say, I think there's a lot of people in manufacturing in this country that will resonate with a lot of what you're saying. Before Grace does her last question, can you just put a shout out to you, your business? Yeah, just to make sure that, we'll put this onto a few New Zealand surf sites and things. How do people find you? Please put a shout out.
So first of all, I guess if you want to come and meet me in person, I'm based in Silverdale, which is about 40 minutes north of Auckland Airport. We're at Unit 528 Amble Road, myself and Steve Morris. We provide a whole range of skills as well for people that are wanting to build their own boards if they want to get them glassed, cut and sanded in our factory. Otherwise, you can find me www.aitkensurfboards.co.nz and ladysliders.co.nz, and then I've got my number and email if you guys need that too. But also just on Instagram, Lady Sliders, and also Aitken Surfboards. I'm pretty active on there, and it's just the way the business world's going. But yeah, I'm always trying to get back to people, and more importantly, I'm always up for meeting new surfers, especially women too. Now that I've started this new brand, the response has been incredible, and I've met so many awesome wahine in the last 6 months since I started. So that's the best part really for me, is getting to surf with all these other new women and guys and seeing my boards in the water. So, but yeah, I'm always up for a surf, a coffee at the factory, and yeah, even if you just want to come and check it out and not order anything, it's all good with us.
Yeah. Oh, look, and all the best for you, for what you're doing. And like I say, thank you so much for letting us interview you, for sharing, being honest with us. Yeah, all the best for everything you're doing. Grace will have a question for you.
Well,
thanks, Heath.
Next thing is, it makes me want to surf. This happens too often, Ludlam, where I'm like, no, I want to sail. No, I want to surf. Because
it seems so flat, Grace. I don't know if you want to start. It's a pretty gnarly hobby. You get so addicted to it, and then the ocean decides to go flat for 2 months.
Oh, well, your passion, it has that effect. So I'm so ecstatic that, yeah, kids, year 11, 12, 13, whatever, or people my age in Ludland are really as after this combo. Before the very sign off, is there something we didn't ask you that you think we should have? Just a bit of a catch moment?
No, not really, No, I just think if I had any advice for my younger self or anyone thinking about leaving school, or just trying to stick it out, just back yourself 100%. I think self-confidence goes a long way, and I've only learned that about myself in probably the last 2 years. I never used to back myself. Don't know why, but as soon as you start to, you will go a lot further than you ever thought you could. And try not to dwell too much on your choices. At the end of the day, you need to make a choice, and you might have a couple of different paths to go down, but there's going to be no wrong path in my eyes, as long as you stick to your values and try and pick something that is going to make you happy. And whatever you do, don't look back. Don't dwell on, oh, what if I did this? What if I did that? Because it's too late by then, Put your time and your energy into yourself and your future. And above all, just have fun and respect everyone else, really.
Well, my last question is always, what advice would you give you to you? But I think he just gave it right there.
Yeah. And just invest in yourself. Like your 20s, I used to get told, oh, your 20s are your selfish years. Whoa. And I used to say, oh, what are you on about? But now, we've got a mortgage. We're looking after a small child sometimes, and you will never get your 20s back. So do what you want to do. Travel or invest in your career, whatever it is, do it 110%, and don't waste those years, because you don't get them back, and you will learn the most about yourself, I think. And yeah, just back yourself and go for it, really.
Thank you. You can tell you spend a lot of time on the water, because there's some wisdom flying from you out there. They're incredible. Thank you so much.
It's from hanging out with all these older chafers, mate.
Yeah.
Bit of an old soul now.
And can we put a put a shout out to all those older shapers in New Zealand for all the hard work they do. And as you say, it's a real community and it's something we should be really, really proud of. They produce outstanding equipment. So yeah, shout out to if you've got a local shaper, support them.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate the time, and yeah, good luck with the next interview, and look forward to hearing all about it. Nice to meet you guys.
See you, Lou. Bye-bye.
Yeah.